I was asked, what were you feeling when you walked out to your airplane carrying your parachute and your Mae West vest? What are your feelings? We had a job to do. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, those of us in Long Beach, California, felt we were at risk. And the city was blacked out. Everything was blacked out. We figured the Japanese was going to invade California. And so the next day I went out to visit a friend of mine, and he said, let's go down to Mora and volunteer. And I didn't have anything to do, so I said, okay. So we did that. He failed his physical, and I was accepted in the Army Air Corps. So they sent me to radio school. I didn't like that at all, so I flunked out of it. Then I was sent out to California to the Boeing School of Aeronautics. Remember, I'm a high school dropout. I flunked out of that school. But that had a big impact on my life, the fact that I had some training in mechanics. I went back to my base and saw the commanding officer and said, I'd like to go to aerial gunner school. I'd like to get involved in the fight. And I graduated from aerial gunner school and was assigned a crew, a B-24 crew. There was 10 men on it, or 10 boys really, 10 boys on a B-24 crew, and they chose me as the engineer based upon, I guess, flunking out of the Boeing School of Aeronautics. Our first mission was the Germans occupied a submarine base in France. And so we did a bombing run on the sub base in France. And we were at about 20,000 feet. As an engineer, I generally flew between the pilot and the co-pilot. When we got into a combat situation, I would get up in the upper gun turret. There were two 50 caliber machine guns. I had 360-degree view of everything. And I could look down, and I looked down, and I saw that they were shooting at us. And I thought, gee, this might be dangerous. So I did the bombing runs, and we weren't hit. None of the shots hit us, but they scared me. Well, they scared all of us. We never experienced that before. So that was my introduction to flying combat. I'd flown a number of missions, and one day they came and got me, and they pulled me off the crew, and I said, what are you doing to me? And they said, we're sending you to London to the embassy. And I said, why am I going to the embassy? Well, we've got something for you to do. And so they sent me to London, and they gave me a passport. And we walked out into a warehouse that was full of clothes. And they said, pick out what you want. And so I picked out a sport coat and some slacks. And I said, what am I going to do? They said, you'll find out. And so the next day they shipped me up to a very secluded base in Scotland. And they assigned me to a crew there. We flew a pilot, co-pilot, radio operator, navigator, and me. The commanding officer of this whole event was Brent Balkan. And Brent Balkan was a very famous Arctic explorer. I said, where are we going? They said, Sweden. Well, Sweden was a neutral nation. Well, our airplane did not have any armament, did not have any insignias. We were all dressed in civilian clothes, all the pilot and myself and everybody else. And our big concern was one of the night fighters would get out as far as we were offshore and shoot us down because we had no defense. We flew up to the northern part of Norway, crossed over and flew back down into Stockholm, Sweden, in the Swedish airspace. And we parked our airplane way, way away from all the other airplanes because our airplane was loaded with boxes marked Red Cross, and they were a little bit larger than a microwave, and they were locked tight. We didn't know what was in them. Well, then these boxes was high explosives for the Norwegian underground. It was really exciting because we were very secret, but we had done these secret missions for the OSS, Office of Special Services. I'm going to have a hard time with is looking at these 9,000 crosses. Every one of those crosses was a young guy like me. Every one of them. There was two men on my crew that didn't come back. John Large and Charlie Baker. One of them, he was on another aircraft and ran into a mountain. And the other boy, they got shot up really bad and they jumped out and his parachute didn't open. And we accepted that as the risk that we experienced every time we got in the airplane and took off on a mission. Were we coming back? We didn't know. And am I going to be able to look at these 9,000 crosses? I don't know. I don't know.